Hey there, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Evoke Greatness. This podcast was created for those of you who, like me, are driven by their curious nature and fascination with the champion mindset. If you have an insatiable hunger for growth and knowledge, or maybe you're just curious on how some of the most successful people have navigated their journey, we share the ups and the downs, the highs and the lows, and all the lessons learned along the way. It doesn't matter what chapter you are on in your story. Maybe you're just getting started, or heck, maybe you're halfway through. What I know is where intention goes, energy flows. It's my most sincere hope that you will hear something in one or maybe many of these episodes that resonates with you and reminds you that you are not in this alone. As we venture into year 2, I hope that you find a sense of connection and community when you're here, because we all deserve a place where we belong. My name is Sunny, and I am so glad you're here. If you're new, there's a few things you want to know about me. I am a huge book nerd and a wee bit of a control enthusiast with an obsession for motivational coffee cups. I believe that a rising tide raises all ships, and I invite you along in this journey to evoke greatness. Welcome back to another episode of Evoke Greatness. My guest today is Claude Silver. Claude is the Chief Heart Officer at VaynerMedia, optimistic rebel, and leading expert and advocate in diversity and inclusion, as well as we just found out that we are both from the 505. We are fellow New Mexicans. Claude, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here with me today.
Thank you. Great to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Sunny.
Absolutely. Well, you've done a lot of interviews. People know a lot about you. And so I really wanted to dig into some things that maybe add a little more insight to what you do and kind of how your heart approaches situations. And so I'm curious, when did it first become a distinction for you to lead differently than maybe most people practice on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. Go for the question right there.
Yes.
Big question. I have two responses that were very pivotal in my head. When I was 19, I left college after my sophomore year, and I was going nowhere fast, which I've talked about. And I told my parents I needed to find the longest outdoor class I could. So careful what you wish for. I found a 93-day wilderness leadership outward bound course that had me in Colorado, Utah, Arizona, California. 93 days, 85 pounds on my back. I was the only young woman with 9 young men. We showered once every 18 days. You can imagine. It was really, 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 really roughing it. That is the first time I heard of servant leadership. That's the first time I heard the term. I don't use that term anymore for obvious reasons, but it is who I am. And in that course, in those 93 days, you learn to put others before you. You learn that you work for others. You work in a pack. It's not solo. So that's the first time. And I would say the second time is when I was at another agency in San Francisco, and I recognized that all of the C-suite or the leaders all had offices and they shut their doors all the time. And I can remember thinking to myself, I really can, that's not how I'm going to lead. And it just felt very exclusive. Of course, it was exclusive. And that was 2005, 6, 7. And those were different days maybe. But those two things really stick out to me in terms of, I'm going to go a different route here.
Yeah. And I think being exposed to that experience, especially the first one, it resonates something with me. So I had I gave my mom a bit of a hard time, we'll just say, that's putting it mildly. And my mom had thought about putting me in this program called the Anasazi program. And it was very similar. You go out and who knows, how that would have changed the course of my life. I finally got my head on straight, but it is experiences like that deeply and profoundly impact you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, absolutely. Because at the end of the day, you really realize, you're with you and your thoughts. And so what am I going to do with these thoughts if they're full of gremlins? I mean, I had to really figure out. No. And they were loud at that point in my life. So I really, through Outward Bound, I was able to for the first time ever, really identify what the negativity was saying in here. Now, it did take me some time to unravel that, but at least I caught it for the first time.
Right. How has your lens changed over the course of the last, even say 3 years, when you view the human experience? Lots changed in the world.
Yeah. I'll tell you this, it's enunciated the need for tenderness. It's enunciated the need for care. And further affirmed to me that we are really all the same
Mm-hmm.
with very, very different lived experience, but that we are experiencing very similar emotions on an every day, every hour, every week life cycle. And that ought to promote more empathy in the world. And in some places it does, and in some places it doesn't.
Right. Yeah, completely agree. I'm a firm believer that it's never too late to steer a ship, in a different direction in regards to how we show up as leaders. What advice would you have for leaders who may not have matured yet? Maybe, don't have enough of an experiential lens to be at their best self yet. And by that, I mean, it's still kind of the me show versus my team, and really, experiencing that from a we versus an I show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just said my favorite phrase, which is we, not I. Absolutely. I mean, first, let's send everyone we can on Outward Bound or the Honest Aussie. Because
That's
I
right.
think that kind of kick in the pants sometimes is what it takes to really wake up and want to become self-aware, because you need to become self-aware because there's a lion chasing you. I mean, just like we did in way back in the Stone Age. Um, Self-awareness for me is the key. It's really the alpha and the omega, and it's very difficult to teach that. You can show by example what my journey was, what your journey was, and how that led us to waking up to how we were sabotaging ourselves or whatever. But it's very difficult to, you can lead the person to water, but you can't make them drink. And so leading by example, and also showing those leaders, those managers out there, the possibilities that exist if they tweaked that, not, hey, that was bad, but look what could have happened. Look what would have happened if you would have walked into that meeting room with your head held high and smiling rather than looking at your phone being really busy. What would have happened if you would have said, yeah, let's look into that, rather than a no. So, encouraging the growth mindset is a big part of that. And, this is all jargon we can talk about all day long, but it's the tactics and how you execute and practice what that jargon is actually made out of. Growth mindset. Okay, well, those are two words, but within those two words exist 20 things that you and I can do right now to make our day better, brighter, to turn someone else's lights on. There is so much possibility. And so I think that's the thing. How do we help those leaders or those managers see a no and help them, who see a no and help them turn it to a yes, maybe?
Yeah, yeah. And I think that is a powerful concept or idea to have permeate a workplace, an organization, a culture, is the creation of possibility, the creation of something that may not even yet exist. Because I think that
Yeah.
opens up the boundaries of what is possible, right? What doesn't exist today that if we apply X, Y, and Z, we can actually make possible.
Yeah. So the wonderful thing is I get the great benefit of working for Gary Vaynerchuk every day. And he's an entrepreneur, and he is in the business of yes, or yes and. And
Mm-hmm.
working in an environment like that encourages any leader, if they have their head on, to see possibility, to see opportunity, not for themselves. That's easy for us to look for ourselves all day long, but to see it for others, because that's the name of the game here.
Right.
We're here. I always say, like, this is not about the Claude show. This is about turning you into a champion, turning you into someone who's thriving, turning you into someone you're proud of when you are sitting there brushing your teeth in the morning. Like, I like that person. It's going to
Right.
be a great day.
Right. Yeah. I'm not sure, I was thinking about this, and I'm not sure everybody agrees with your perspective or the way you approach work or leadership. And what I have found is some people they're committed to misunderstanding us, right? And
That's
so
great.
how do you navigate that so as to avoid getting caught up in it, not feeding
Yeah,
into that some people are just committed to misunderstanding you?
I like how you said that, because how you said it has tenderness in it. It's not how it can sometimes feel on the screen when you read it, which sounds like can be very, very harsh and nasty. Everyone has their own unique way of looking at the world based on where they come from, what happened to them, how it happened, and how they feel today. Are they still living in the past and living in that trauma, or have they been able to take the PTSD and turn it into what's now called post traumatic stress growth, growing from opportunity. So I I don't set out to change people, I'll tell you that, and I learned that the hard way through relationships, being very codependent as most of us are, especially in our younger years, trying to change that person. So I don't do that. I just continue going. I just continue moving forward, and I definitely understand that my way is not the highway for many people, and vice versa. And vice versa. I mean, all I can do is really just hold respect for them, and hope that if they do disagree with me or something else I believe in, that they can address that in somewhat of a human way rather than a nasty way, because nastiness isn't, no one listens to nastiness. At the end of the day, it's just noise. So I guess that's it. I mean, I could sit here and tell you, well, I mean, go read all the Buddhist teachings, and go read the teachings of Christ, and go read, all of the spiritual books and whatnot, and go read Jung, and go read and positive psychology. And it's all going to tell you the same thing that I'm talking about. But I'm not going to say that because I'm not an expert in those things. Other people are much smarter than I am when it comes to that. But, I, I'm open to always hearing the other side. I
Yeah,
really
yeah.
am.
And I think that approaching that from a place of being open to it, approaching it from a place of holding space for it, but not being negatively impacted by it is really, that's the power piece, that positively puts a spin on maybe what could be a negative situation.
Yes. And nothing is utopic. I don't hit it out of the park every single day. And I'm also not able to, have that bounce off of me every single day, because I'm human, just like anyone else.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Shifting gears a little bit, looking at your daughters, what are some hopes that you have for your daughter's future as you look at it today?
Well, we gave them very strong names because we wanted them to be able to walk into any room and really take up space with that name. So we've got Shalom, who is our 4-year-old, and then we've got Edison, who is our 20-month-old. My hope is what I tell them each and every day, especially Shalom, the 4-year-old, which is to be courageous and to be kind, to be bold, to be courageous, to be kind, to be bold, and all kinds of other things. But
Right.
she and I put this on LinkedIn a while ago. We send out like the energetic kindness balloons everywhere we are. I want her to know that she has the power to put kindness here and to extend it elsewhere. And so, I mean, she's 4, so I'm, so I'm not going like, oh, put telepathic thought in there, but
Right.
my wish for them in the future is that they are strong, confident, kind, loving people that have the
Right.
capacity to love themselves, probably a lot quicker than I loved myself, and thus to extend love and warmth to others. That's really it. I mean, to have a generous spirit. That's really important to me. And they could pick up trash or fly to Mars. It does not matter to me.
Yeah. That's beautiful. And I love the names. I love the power in the names of really giving them that foundation to launch off of
Yeah, thank you.
and
It's
anything they come
important.
up against. Yeah.
Yeah, names are so important. It took me years and years to to like my name because it's a French name and it gets mispronounced daily. And it's, people say Mr. Claude. But then I finally got into the power of it. And there's something to be said about this is who I am. It's my name. This is what I'm
Right.
putting forward.
What
Yeah.
does a day in the life of Claude look like? What are some non-negotiable parts of your routine that you are just unwilling to skip out on?
Yeah. So a lot of this happened when we had Shalom. Definitely was a workaholic. Work was actually a habit in many, a hobby for me. Um, and so when we had Shalom, I immediately put on my calendar, do not disturb before 9 a.m. and do not disturb after 5:30 p.m., which is unheard of. Like would
Right.
have been unheard of 5 years ago for me, but it's very empowering to do that. People know that they can get in touch with me. But my day is done. I mean, I've squeezed the orange as hard as I possibly can. So that's a huge non-negotiable. So I'm around for, dinner and bath time and all of that because that's for me as much as it is for them. I'm learning a whole nother side to Claude at 53 years old that I didn't even know existed, or um the other non-negotiables are like trite. I mean, I have to have coffee in the morning before I do anything, usually a cup and a half or two. I have to work out. I have to listen to music. There's certain things I know if I'm back to back to back on one day or maybe 3 days in a row, I have to cancel two meetings and I have to just sit and get me back to like where I can hear the hum of Claude, if that makes sense. Being outdoors is huge, seeing trees, talking to my friends. But like the real thing happened around having kids and the joy of the imagination that they have brought into my life and now the imagination that we share together. I mean, last night Shalom and I sat in her bed. It was pitch dark. It was time for her to go to bed and she said, "Can we count the stars?" Well, there are no stars. It was dark, but we counted the stars. And we saw in our imagination shooting stars. And it's just so cool. Like, when would I have ever had that beautiful moment at my age? I don't know. I don't know. It's just very cool. So that's 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 like they bring me home.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny that the things that we do for our kids, right? That like the extent of the things. I have an 11-year-old, and through COVID, we really got passionate about astronomy, and we got all these apps and telescope, and we would go walk, and we would hold this app up and see what was above us and what's below us, and it became this fascination of wonder that we both really
Yeah.
loved and enjoyed. And a few months ago, there was a lunar eclipse. And so he said, "Mom, the lunar eclipse is at, I don't know, like 2:32 a.m. And so I need you to wake up and I need you to wake me up and we're going to go out back and lay on the trampoline and watch it." And I was like, "Oh,
Wow.
okay." So I was like,
Wow.
"Oh, set the alarm, set it for 5 minutes early, get him
Yeah.
up. We go back out. It's cold out. We have our blanket. We wrap up. We watch this lunar eclipse. And it was freaking amazing." And I thought,
That's
I'm so grateful, you know, to
yeah.
be able to wake up at 2:32 a.m. with my 11-year-old son who wants to watch a lunar eclipse with me.
With you. Like with you.
Yeah.
It's so yeah, it's there's gratitude is exactly how I feel. That's a beautiful story. Yeah.
What surprises you most about human resiliency?
Wow. I mean, the ability to get back up after you've fallen down or been pushed down time and time and time again. Not the first time, not the second time, but the 20th time.
Hmm.
That we as human beings have it in us to say, "I'm not done yet. This isn't going to be the last of me. You haven't heard the last of me. This isn't how it's going to go down." And we can knock ourselves down, we can get knocked down, life can knock us down, name it. The act of not turning into a victim takes a heck of a lot of resilience and strength and self-awareness to not go into victimhood. I can't, that happened to me, poor me, poor me. And I think that is actually one of the most incredible things, those people that, and those of us that can be the phoenix and rise out of the ashes once, twice, three times, and keep coming back.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a
absolutely.
wonderful question, a really wonderful question, because I don't know if enough is said about our ability, every single one of us, and our ability to rise up.
Yeah.
And we don't have to do it alone. And that's kind of like the asterisk I want to put right there.
In what ways do you seek to stretch yourself or get uncomfortable?
Another great question. Gosh, okay, being a parent for sure is a huge stretch. Uh, Having a healthy relationship in when you're parents is another huge stretch. And also, I think having very candorous conversations in the workplace or with friends that are from such a warm heart and a good place, and still being able to deliver that information because the person needs to know, they deserve to know. And so, we always say feedback is a gift. When we withhold feedback or observations or opinions from, Joe, well, it's sabotaging Joe, and it's really minimizing who we are. So how do we reverse engineer that, knowing that what I want to do is turn Joe into a champion, turn him into a person that can fly like an eagle. And I believe my subjective feedback would be helpful. Mind you, it's subjective.
Right.
So I have to stretch. I have to really stretch to have that conversation and say, this is a vulnerability here. Or this is, the fifth person that's come to me to say that the way you speak to them is really hard and harsh, and it's lacking a lot of compassion. How do I'm the messenger there, but I'm also there not only to deliver, but to help them unwind and unravel that. So I have to be prepared with all of my senses, quite frankly, to kind of move and shake however that person receives the information. Or if they don't receive the information, I have to be able to see around the corner so I can somehow get it in over there.
Yeah. In a time in our world when organizations are reevaluating their culture, what culture
Hmm.
even means to them. It's easy to go down and do the tick box and what is our mission, vision, and values and throw it up on a wall
Sure,
somewhere.
sure.
But I think there are truly some organizations that are wanting to peel back the layers and get deeper and start a shift. Or maybe the old leader is out and a new person is coming in and they're really trying to make a positive impact in the world in which their people live, and function for 8+ hours every single day. What
Hmm.
guidance would you have for either a new leader or a leader who is committed to a shift in the betterment of their culture?
Hmm. The first advice I have is one that I walk as well, which is being vulnerable and having to choosing to share things about me or my past or my hesitations or downfalls with certain things, because I'm not any different. So if I'm the leader, it's important for me to get real so that they can get real and we can create a space where people feel safe. First and foremost, they feel psychologically and physically safe. That has to happen. You have to have that in order to build connection, belonging, trust, you name it. And then I think it's really important to look at the team in front of you, or let me just say, look at the people in front of you and identify whether or not it is a group or a team. And there's a big difference between group and team. In a workplace, my hope is that we are a team. That doesn't always happen, especially when you're dealing with silos or on or off the island or no politics. You don't come here. I'm not going to share my information with you. So you have to get really real about, like, who are we and who are we today and who do we want to be tomorrow, and how quickly that change can happen if there are willing participants that are wide awake as you are, walking into it with the eyes open rather than sleepwalking. So I think that's the first thing, which is really just being real. And you and I can open up any HBR Inc. LinkedIn post today, and it's all going to be on the 3 leadership tips, the 3 skills that you need, the this and that, what to say to be a mindful leader. And then we're all talking the same thing,
Right.
which is getting real, which is getting in touch with yourself, which is being, I can use the word authentic, I can use the word real, raw, like being able to self-regulate your emotions, of course, but taking people with you on a journey and having a vision to where you're all going together. That is helpful. People want to know where they're going, especially if they're about to open up to you.
Right. When you think about, um, we all have a limited time here on Earth, right? And thinking about that, what is something that you want to ensure that you create or achieve or contribute before you go?
Yeah. I mean, I really, really want to be part of the elimination of shame in this world. And that will take lifetimes and lifetimes. But if I can be part of it, which I do feel like I can take a small part of it, that's huge. And also as a parent, that's huge. And I said in the beginning, bringing more tenderness, like bringing a revolution of tenderness, of care, of not an eye for an eye, just the ability to turn the other cheek. As you said, what do you do when you see people that disagree with you? Well, they disagree with me. So everything that I'm talking about isn't, soft, ooey gooey honey. It takes strength,
Right.
and it takes real willingness and commitment to honing your skills and honing your like your determination. If I want to rid this world of shame, well then I better start with me. Okay, I've spent a lot of time on that. I can tell you that it's pretty much gone, but you and I could, on another conversation, I can go right back there, right? It's easy. But shame is a killer, and it's a blocker, and there are so many people that live in isolation and loneliness, in addiction and whatnot, because that fear of not being wanted, liked enough, because they did something so wrong. And you and I are not the judge and jury of what they did is wrong or right. I can only judge myself. But that's a really big, and thank you for the question. No one's really asked me that question, but that's what I want to do. And so if I can do some of that at Vayner, that's fantastic. 2,000 people, I have a playground, to play with, where my only job description is to bring empathy into, every single person. And I also need to remember, like, I don't get it right all the time. I don't. There's no way I could. And I have to continuously commit and be consistent with my way of being.
And I'm a firm believer that we are shaped in life not by the peaks, right, of our
Yeah.
wins and our successes and all the pretty, Instagram highlight
Yeah.
reels. I'm a firm believer that we're shaped a lot in the valley. And
Mm.
so I'm curious if there is a powerful lesson that stands out to you that has really been something that has helped shape you. It's oftentimes really hard in the moment, but boy, we come out kind of a different person on the other side of it.
Yeah. I mean, one, I have to say, Outward Bound was the first pivotal moment for me in my life. I was, like I say, I was going nowhere fast, drugs, bad decisions, bad boys, and I really had to wake up and say, this isn't how it's going to go for me, but I don't know how to get out of this until I get away from everything that is consuming me or
Right.
enticing me. That was a really, really big moment. I mean, waking up at coming out of Outward Bound and waking up one day or coming back from, I was a bartender, and coming back from that night of bartending one day and saying to my parents in the night, like, I have a problem with cocaine and I'm going to get this fixed.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty difficult.
Yeah.
And then the next day, this is back in a phone when you had phone books, but the next day, Santa Fe, New Mexico, looking up like, oh, and it said Cocaine Anonymous. And I went. And somehow, I don't know how I went. My eyes were so shut from crying. But somehow I got there. And that was a big wake up. And those meetings were very helpful for me, because those meetings, and any meeting like that, I think is what reminds us or opens our eyes up to the fact that we are all so similar. I mean,
Right.
I was a 22-year-old kid sitting there with, much older people that, were snorting glue when they were 4. Like, God, I'm so sorry for them. But I didn't have a whole lot of difference except for my life experience. So that's why I go back to always saying there is no difference. And I'm always, and you are, one step away from that. If we don't have our wits about us and keep committed to who we are and where we're going and how we want to be. Like, how do I want to show up every single day?
Right.
And fortunately, it keeps on happening. I keep on showing up the same, the same, the same. And that's a big part of, I think, a happy life somewhat is the consistent life, consistently showing up in this way.
Yeah, and I'm really grateful for your authenticity and vulnerability when it comes to sharing that. Oftentimes people don't want to share that secret stuff, that stuff that they would perceive as shameful, as
Yeah.
would make
Yeah.
you look bad. And I think when we talk about those things, it was really kind of the premise of creating this podcast was, how do we talk about all the junk in between where we started and where we are today? And really, allowing it to come out, but it allows people to see you as a person. It allows people to recognize that maybe if I'm stuck in this place, it's not such a good place and it may feel like rock bottom. There's a top to this, and I'm going to come out on the other
Mhm.
side of it, and it gives them hope.
Yeah. Hope, like, I know some people think of hope as like, well, don't open yourself up to too much hope. I've heard that. But for me, hope and optimism are the same thing.
Yeah,
It's the promise of a new day. It's the promise that the sun will shine tomorrow. I will wake up again tomorrow, and I have a new opportunity to get it right, whatever right is for me.
right.
So I think it's really important to share those things, and to share, my road, for example, has been so incredibly windy, and there's nothing linear about it. And that's what's worked for Claude. And what works for Sunny and what works for Bobby can be very, very different. My brother and I are best friends, 18 months apart, completely different roads. And we still love each other. We're still, hilarious with one another. Yeah. Thank
As,
you.
yeah, as we wrap up, I'm curious, how do you define greatness?
The answer I have is one that I've already shared here, which is a generosity of spirit and leaving people better than you found them. So for me, it really all is about the one-on-one and the one-to-many. Like, how many we have this ability. You have a platform. I have a platform. We talk to people at the coffee shop. We're in the world. We have an ability to make or break someone's day. We do, just with a look, just with a smile, just with a wink, just with saying nothing in the elevator. And again, this takes practice, but how do you want, I want everyone to have all the wonderful fortune that I've had of the generosity that's been brought to my life by family members and friends and Gary and partners, kids. So I think of it as great. I define greatness as really being able to unlearn a shitload uh, and and have a very generous heart, and one that I know is meant to serve.
That's a beautiful definition.
Thank you. It's a long, winding road to get to that definition. But, you know, we build, I've been fortunate, you've been fortunate to build a body of wisdom and a body of warmth. And I know my heart needs to share it. I know it's not just for me. And I'm ever grateful that I have Gary and I have this role and the platform that I have to share it, because it's what's mine is yours.
Right.
What's yours is mine.
Where can, for those who want to find out more about you, find out what you're doing, what's going on with you, what's the latest, where can they find you at?
Yeah, the biggest place I'd say is LinkedIn. I'm pretty vocal there. I have a website. It's claudesilver.com. And that's really it. Instagram I use, I would say more personally, although someone just was an imposter out there and asking people to give them money for crypto. That's not me. But I would never do that. But LinkedIn is a great place, and you can always just hit me up on email.
Great, great. Thank you. Well, thank you for taking the time. I know that you have a lot going on in your world, but I want to acknowledge you for the amazing way you show up. So
Thank you.
open, so authentic, so willing to share your lessons with others to
Thank
really
you.
make the world a better place. And so I'm grateful for you and for your time today.
Thanks. Thank you, Sunny. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for listening and for being here on this journey with me. I hope you'll stick around. If you liked this episode, it would mean the world for me if you would rate and review the podcast or share it with someone you know may need to hear this message. I love to hear from you all and want you to know that you can leave me a voicemail directly. If you go to my website, evokegreatness.com, and go to the Contact Me tab, you'll just hit the big old orange button and record your message. I love the feedback and comments that I've been getting, so please keep them coming. I'll leave you with the wise words of author Robin Sharma. Greatness comes by doing a few small and smart things each and every day. It comes from taking little steps consistently. It comes from making a few small chips against everything in your professional and personal life that is ordinary, so that a day eventually arrives when all that's left is the extraordinary.